NFL tier lists are always the topic of conversation throughout the offseason. And although we're almost done with them, a big one dropped on Monday. We talk about that, injuries continuing to pile up across the NFL, and so much more coming up on Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome into Peacock and Williamson. I am not Brian Peacock. I am Kevin Ostreicher filling in for Mr. Brian Peacock, and alongside me is, of course, Mr. Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. We're here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thanks so much for being here with us today on this Tuesday. Make it Locked On and Peacock and Williamson your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, in audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. And again, thank you out there to all the everydayers, even the first-time listeners. And for some in the middle, thank you for tuning in as well. Matt, we love ranking players, ranking positions.
Sure.
We see it all across the league, and that usually gets reserved for like some July, right? Really when there's nothing to talk about. Training camp isn't really started yet. Well, Mike Sando of The Athletic, he has been doing this for a long time. He's had years and years and years of phenomenal NFL coverage. And every year he dives into his tier quarterback rankings. He polls for key front office players, executives, everybody. And it all results in tiers 1 through 5 for the quarterback position. I'm pumped to talk about this.
Yeah. And I know Mike well. He's been on the show when this show was originated. He came on once a week. Mike and I worked 10 years together at ESPN. We did a lot of different articles together. I see him at many events, combines, owners meetings, things of that nature. And what's cool is, I've asked him behind the scenes too. I think he polls 50 people from the NFL. And trust me, folks, these are not ball boys. These are not assistant tight end coaches. These aren't first-year scouts. These are pretty high up people in organizations that know what they're talking about, and they take it pretty serious. They take it very seriously. So I put a lot of credence in these, especially the comments.
And it's huge. And actually, Mike went into even more detail in his article in the list about who he interviewed in specific, not names, obviously, but you have
right.
6 general managers, 6 assistant general managers, 6 former general managers, 5 other executives, 8 head coaches, and 19 other coaches, including 15 coordinators. So wow. You're right. These are guys that are high up. They are prominent NFL figures. In their opinion, holds weight. It means something. It's not just guys talking to talk. It's guys who actually have walked the walk here and continue to do it at the NFL level. So how this works, just, in case people don't know, is each of the voters places 34 veteran quarterbacks into 5 tiers, obviously the best being tier 1 and the worst being tier 5. And then how that works with the votes is quarterbacks are ranked by an average vote and placed into tiers based off of that vote distribution. So, and obviously Mike doesn't include rookies in this,
nor should
there's nothing to grade them on. So let's just dive into the first tier, which is 5 quarterbacks this year. Quarterbacks move up and down tiers. This year, Matt, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow were tied for the top spots in the NFL. Let's just start with those 2 guys in particular, Mahomes and Burrow. Did that surprise you at all, or is that right on par with where your line of thinking is right now?
No, that surprises me. I pull back the curtain. We'll get to these 2 guys in about one second. But I think there's 4 Avengers, playing quarterback right now. And it's these 2, it's Lamar and it's Allen. Now, for me, Mahomes had the worst year of the 4.
Yes. Yep.
But like some of the comments in here are just like, we're criticizing this guy and they're 9-0. There's craziness. We're really nitpicking. But I do think the gap between Mahomes and whoever you feel comfortable putting 2 has narrowed a little over the last couple of years, mostly because these 3 are just ridiculously good. Now, for me, they would be the only 4 in tier 1. Now, I know there is a 5th. I just went through this myself, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Burrow would also be my 4th ranked guy. Mahomes would be my 1. And Allen versus Lamar to me is a total coin flip.
It's interesting too with these lists, Matt. I'm always curious to know what everybody is voting based off of, because like you said, Mahomes had the worst season last year, but we know that Mahomes has the rings. So are people voting based off of past accolades and saying, okay, Mahomes clearly has the Super Bowl resume, which would 100% unquestionably put him at number 1 in these rankings. But if you're going like, is it a 2024 season tier list where at that rate, like you'd be ranking Lamar and Josh and Joe ahead of Mahomes by a pretty wide margin there.
Just to stop you real quick, Kevin, I think basically the way that Sando presents it to the voters is how good do you think they are right this minute at the game?
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's not a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes.
It's not necessarily how good your season was, but that obviously carries weight. It's not a young guy. I think Drake May is going to be awesome, but he isn't yet. That type of thing,
Yeah, and I think with that too, you can even break that down further into, you're right, like the Chiefs, they won the games last season. Like they were the 1 seed in the AFC. They came out with all those close victories. And I know that people with the Chiefs, Matt, is like, oh, they just got lucky. That, the Broncos game with the blocked field goal and like all this stuff. But
They've had a lot of luck the last couple of years. Then.
Yeah, it's true. Like it's true. A good team also finds ways to win games like those. Like they find ways to pull it out. So I think it is a little bit of both there. Burrow obviously has been getting a lot of hype. You can also take into account, and I know this because covering Lamar in the MVP conversation, Lamar got a lot of flack because of the core that he had around him, where it was Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, I can go on and on. Joe Burrow does have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL at his disposal in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, whereas, the argument for Josh last year was, all right, Stephon Diggs is out the door. Now you're running with a bunch of guys that aren't wide receiver ones at the NFL level. Mahomes, he lost Marquise Brown. Rashee Rice, he lost. Travis Kelce looked a little step slow last season. So there are those other arguments too. And just to kind of pull back the curtain on where the other 2 guys are ranked before we get into number 5, Josh Allen was 3 and Lamar Jackson was 4. And we saw in other lists, Lamar Jackson being ranked 4, Mahomes still being up there in that top conversation. Feels like the NFL is pretty set into how they feel about these 4 guys right now.
Yeah, and again, I think they're at their own level. And I'm not going to, even though I said Burrow is 4, the fact that he's 2 here, okay. I mean, he played an MVP level too. And unlike the other 3, he really doesn't have a defense to help him at all. The whole world knows he's throwing and throwing and throwing,
Yeah. And these lists are so comprehensive, and this list in particular by Mike, he does a phenomenal job illustrating and outlining, even just over year to year, dating back to 2019. Lamar Jackson in particular, I'll just use him as the example here. He was number 4. Last year, he was in tier 2. Which I had a real problem with at the time, by the way. Yes, absolutely. He got 26 tier 2 votes compared to 23 tier. Well, he even got a tier 3 vote last season, which is just unbelievable. This season, he had 46 tier 1 votes compared to just 4 tier 2 votes. And that was one of the highest leaps into tier votes for a quarterback. So you can look at it that way. But number 5, Matt, I think is the one that everybody's talking about right now. And that is Matthew Stafford, who got this year 26 tier 1 votes, 23 tier 2 votes, and then 1 tier 3 vote. Matt Stafford was in tier 2 last season. Matt Stafford is in tier 1 for the first time at age 37 after 11 consecutive seasons in tier 2 on this list. So what do you feel about Matt Stafford? Not necessarily that he's even number 5 on the list, but just that he is in the same category as the Avengers there, as you called them.
I adore him. I love the way he plays the game. I thought he was phenomenal last year, but he would not be my 5th guy. He'd be in contention for it, and he would not be in tier 1, nor would anybody else. I think those 4 are noticeably better than whoever you want to put at 5. Frankly, I'd put Herbert, but I wouldn't stand on the table for it and pound the table for it. One thing that worries me about Stafford that we've already seen, though, is his numbers when under pressure versus a clean pocket are starting to really become a gap, and that happens to older quarterbacks. They just don't stand in quite as much and want to get hit, and it's just human nature. I mean, Rodgers, Big Ben, Eli, Breeze, all these guys, at the end of their career. And it's just the first sign of that for Stafford. So that worries me a little. And he's not going to destroy you with his legs too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously people do vouch for Herbert. People vouch for Jalen Hurts because of the Super Bowl and some of the things he has done. I even saw calls for Jaden Daniels to get at that number 5 spot. How it ended up going in the top 10 was Daniels 6, Herbert 7, Jared Goff came in at 8, CJ Stroud 9, and Jalen Hurts was also 9. They were tied for 9, so I guess Stroud 9, Hurts 10, if you want to call it that way. I'd have Herbert higher. I would have Stafford at 6 and Herbert at 5, kind of like you, Matt. I feel like Hurts to me should be a little higher than he's been in some of these lists. I like Hurts maybe more than other people do. I think that people saw who Hurts was at the beginning of his career and just expected that trajectory. And it's been not that, but he also does have the Super Bowl as well. So it's interesting because, even a guy like CJ Stroud, who had a great rookie season, we saw not the growth that we wanted to see from him in year 2, still in the top 10 over guys like Baker Mayfield, who had a great year for Tampa last year. You also see guys like Jordan Love. Brock Purdy's an interesting guy at number 14. That rounds out tier 2. Were there any other shocks to you at tier 2 that maybe you thought should have been upwards, a little higher ranked, or just guys that should have been in tier 3 altogether?
Shocks, no. I think Goff at 8 is a little rich considering he doesn't bring anything with his legs. And I hate the term system quarterback because like BP and I talk about this all the time. Joe Montana was a system quarterback. Matching system and quarterback is the coach's job and good stuff. But I don't know that Goff would elevate others in a different situation. I don't have a problem with Jordan Love at 13, but I just wanted to kind of go on record that I bet he's around 8 next year. I think this might be the lowest we see out of him for quite a while. And Dak Prescott's worth bringing up to me too, just because I don't know exactly where to put him, but I feel like he's becoming underrated because of the injuries last year and the year before. I mean, it's a 1 year removed. He was second in the MVP balloting when it was all said and done. I think it was Allen won it that year. I forget who won it that year, but he came in second. I mean, that's pretty good. That was only a year ago.
Yeah, it was Lamar 1, Dak 2.
That was Lamar that year. Yeah,
because that was the year Allen had like 18 turnovers or something, and everyone was like, no. And then the Ravens had a great record, and that was a whole nother MVP. I've been involved, Matt, in a lot of MVP conversations over the last handful of years. But I will say this about Dak. Speaking of core around him, it really has been like for the last couple of years, CeeDee Lamb and friends for him. I liked them getting George Pickens.
Right.
Like, I think that with a better group around him, and you're right, like I think he's underrated in the fact that he just hasn't had a lot to work with over the last couple of seasons, and his turnover, like his bad turnovers are bad.
There's some bad tape, don't get me wrong. Yeah.
And like the biggest moments too. I think that also is kind of in that conversation as well with Dak. So again, it's interesting because there's so many differing opinions on this, but another interesting trend in this was the guys in tier 3. So coming up, Matt and I will discuss the rest of the quarterbacks on this list, including some second-year quarterbacks that made their debuts ahead of some pretty established guys. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on Peacock and Williamson. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff's almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Peacock and Williamson are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. One of my favorite features is a new guillotine leagues. They just dropped, and every week the lowest scoring team is eliminated, and the last one standing wins. So whether you're all in on something new or you're like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo has got you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If for more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Back here on Peacock and Williamson, Kevin Oestreicher and Matt Williamson still hanging out with you here on this Tuesday. Matt, we got into tier 1, we got into tier 2. Let's dive a little bit into the tier 3. That is headlined by Kyler Murray, who was number 15 total on this list. but Aaron Rodgers had one of the biggest falls in terms of tiers, where he was consistently a tier 1 quarterback. He dropped to the second tier last season. This year, he dropped all the way to 16 in that tier 3. He actually got 6 fourth tier votes in this as well. Absolutely plummeted. It was more than twice as large as any other player, as Daniel Jones. He was next on that list. He fell by nearly 1/2 tier. Obviously, you're going to do a lot of covering of Aaron Rodgers this season. Last year for Aaron Rodgers and just his Jets tenure in general, with the injury that he suffered in his first game, followed by last year, which, by Aaron Rodgers standards was underwhelming. Do you agree with a drop into tier 3 for Aaron Rodgers, or is there still a little bit more elite play left in that tank?
No, I think he's properly ranked. And we actually did a whole segment on just Rodgers at 16 for my Steelers show that we just finished while practice was going on. We're watching them live. And one thing I threw at the Steeler fans was, would you take it? Like when the season's over, if he's the 16th best quarterback in the NFL, would you say yes or no right now? Or would you take door number 2? Steelers haven't had a top 16 quarterback in like 6 or 7 years. I mean, since Ben's elbow injury. So that would definitely be better than what they've had. But I think he's a difficult guy to rank. Now, I've done a ton of work on him. I've watched him live for weeks now. His last year with the Jets got better and better as the season went on. And for 2 reasons, in my opinion. First, they traded for Devontae Adams at the trade deadline. And secondly, I think he got over his bad Achilles injury from the year before more and more. Now, that being said, he absolutely is one of these quarterbacks at his age, or he was at least last year, that does not want to hold the football in the pocket. I mean, he does not want to take hits like he did back in the day. He's not as twitchy or as mobile or as athletic as he was. But watching him on the practice field, I'm less worried about that than I was watching Jets tape, to be honest with you. And a big thing that you notice about the great quarterbacks, and Rodgers was like an all-time great at this, is intermediate throwing. Throwing from 10 to 20 yards is much harder than short throwing, of course, and deep throwing. I mean, a lot of that's just one-on-one balls down the sideline. But you attack that 10 to 20 area, you're doing high-level quarterbacking. Like Stafford's awesome at it right now. Rodgers really fell off in that regard. So I also think it was a dysfunctional group with the Jets. Like they couldn't pick up a blitz or a stunt, and they're going through coaches left and right. So he's a tough eval, but it wouldn't blow me away if he's 12th after the season or if he's 22nd.
Lot of volatility in terms of where Rodgers could finish. I definitely agree there. But that's been the thing with the Steelers, right, Matt? I mean, it feels like they've had enough. It's just been they've had underwhelming quarterback play to the point where it's like if they just had a top 16 quarterback, they could have probably made a
road start.
Yeah, couple of runs could have been on deck for them. But instead, the quarterback play essentially has held them back from that. So I think that it's important in that context as well, where, look, Rodgers is no longer that top of the line, top 4 guy like we just talked about in the first part of the show. But I still think that he can play solid football and give them better than what they had, at least with the way we saw the season end for Russell Wilson last season, was just how abysmal he was for them.
He got exposed,
If Rodgers gives them just better than that, just a little, maybe even a little better than what we saw from Wilson during the beginning of the season. And even then, there was still some stuff that he had to work on. I think they're going to be in a much better spot here. Yeah. Definitely. You also look at others.
The big thing I keep telling Steelers fans is, like, I want him to be end of career Elway. Hand the ball, be great from the neck up, always get you in the right play, read the defenses properly, do a lot of handing off, and maybe 3 or 4 times a game you see a throw go, ooh, I remember that guy, and that'll go a long way,
I think not the definition, but I think the term game manager gets a really bad rep nowadays, just because I think it's associated with that. But it literally, what the Steelers need Rodgers to do is manage a game. Like just be the guy.
It's a real skill. It's hard to do. Like, frankly, Russell Wilson's not a very good game manager, despite his age.
And I think I saw that in the Baltimore games that he played. I mean, the Steelers were driving down the field with a chance to, I think, go up 14-0 on Baltimore in their game at M&T. Russell Wilson decides to play hero ball and try to truck Ardarius Washington when he had a touchdown, fumbles the ball, gives the ball back to Baltimore, and the Ravens steamroll the Steelers after that. It's those momentum plays where you don't have to be the flashy guy. Just manage the game, do your job, and it's going to result in, I think, more team success. So
Yeah,
if you can do that at a high level, you're right. It absolutely is a skill. Other guys that I think are controversial, or at least guys that people have mixed opinions on. Tua Tagovailoa coming in at number 17, Trevor Lawrence coming in at 18, two guys that obviously had down years last year. Are you out on those guys, Matt, or do you think that there's still something there for either of them?
Who'd you say, Tua and Trevor?
Tua and Trevor Lawrence, yep.
I'm very much still in on Trevor. And a lot of my buddies give me a hard time, like, dude, you got to turn the page on this guy. And I realize that there's a lot of bad tape. There's a lot of bad decisions. There's bad throws. But I go back to Stafford. I mean, Lawrence is only 24 years old. I mean, like they said, I mean, a lot of these, I mentioned Stafford, and I'm older than you, but when Stafford was 24 years old, they were saying the same things. Like, oh, this guy's not the best player on the planet yet. There's a first overall pick. Sometimes it just takes a little time, and there's not been much stability at all. I do think it's a make or break season for him, but I will absolutely put a chip down right now that if we do this show 1 year from now, it'll be noticeably higher than 18. Tua, I'm a believer in. It's just I think he's got such a low ceiling. You know, again, he doesn't run at all. He is manufactured for this offense, which is great. Get the ball out, snap it off, accurate. But his durability worries me. His outside of structure stuff worries me. So I think this is about right and probably where he'll always be.
And again, if Jacksonville can build the proper roster around him, and if the Dolphins can build the proper roster around Tua, like if both those teams can do that, I think that there's success where I think obviously Trevor, like you said, has the higher ceiling than Tua at this point. Like I think Tua obviously is what he is at this point. And
I kind of think we did see a pretty darn good roster around Tua.
Yeah, that's true. And
they
just haven't, whether that's like they need a coaching change. It feels like the beginning of the end for Mike McDaniel, in my opinion, in Miami. Tyreek's requesting out and doing it, and it feels like it's the end of the road for him. They moved on from Jalen Ramsey. Like, I think the Jaguars, you have Brian Thomas Jr., you have Travis Hunter now. Like, you have good young players. I know the ETN situation was weird last year, and Bigsby I think is a good player as well, but I think Jacksonville is investing, and I actually think that, in the next couple of seasons, we could see them ascend, especially if Trevor can get to the, not even like the ceiling of his ceiling, but just a little bit better than what we've seen from him, which I think is going to be really important for him, at least for confidence over this next season to get back to that. But speaking of confidence, we had a lot of rookie signal callers last year, Matt, who really helped their teams out. I mean, people were out on Bo Nix, at least some that I saw. Bo Nix was incredible for Denver last season. He was tied for number 20 in Tier 3. Drake May came in at 22. Caleb Williams came in at 23. Those are the three guys, Year 2 quarterbacks who were on that list. Do you agree with the order those guys are in there? Do you think that maybe May should have had the edge? I think Bo Nix was the best guy last season, and he is properly ranked in that.
Yes, and I think Williams was clearly third of those three. Takes a ton of sacks. I still think he's far from out of the woods. This isn't what this exercise is about, but if I had to pick one going forward, Jaden Daniels aside, we already talked about him.
Yes,
but absolutely. I would definitely take May from this class. I'm smitten with May, and like this blows me away. I think the Patriots only called like 5 designed quarterback runs last year. I mean, it's under 10 by a wide margin, not scrambles. I mean, like designed runs.
Yeah,
and he's one of the best runners in the league. Like. They didn't do him many favors from a coaching staff perspective, and I don't think his supporting cast is A+, but I think he'll be way higher than this a year from now.
And that's another team that invested heavily into their roster this offseason. And that's what you should be doing when you have a rookie contract quarterback. Like, that's absolutely the correct move to do. But at this point with the Patriots, just felt like a mess last season. Like you mentioned the coaching staff thing, it felt like the writing was on the wall for Mayo for the longest time. And it just, you bring back Vrabel and everybody hopes he can be the guy. You have a lot of pieces now around him. I think a lot of people are really excited about TreVeyon Henderson. I am too. I think he's a really solid asset for that offense.
I don't think Josh McDaniels is a great coordinator. Not a great head coach, but I think he's a great coordinator.
Yeah, and some guys just are. Like, that's just where guys need to be sometimes, where the step up is not where they are. but they're elite coordinators. And I think McDaniels absolutely is in that conversation. We've had a couple of stops from McDaniels that haven't gone great. We know that.
Sure.
Other than that, though, Russell Wilson headlines tier 4 alongside Justin Fields. So I guess kind of fitting the Steelers quarterback.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that on my
season.
Steelers show. Yeah.
Steelers quarterback room from last year. Headlines tier number 4.
Kenny Pickett feel good that others think that the Steelers upgraded a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At least they got better.
That's a good headline if you're a Steelers fan. And then even better is Kenny Pickett's in his own tier at tier number 5. So
he's the only one qualified, apparently.
Yeah, literally the only guy in tier 5. And then you have other ones. This is more so, I guess, the potential / older player. Like this is where JJ McCarthy is. Michael Penix is in here. Anthony Richardson is 32. That to me is like not necessarily shocking, but more so like, man, he really hasn't shown a lot. Like that to me was what I got out of Anthony being. He was the third lowest quarterback on this tier list.
Yeah, and I don't know how you put Richardson higher than that.
Yeah,
just has a hard time staying on the field. Accuracy is a huge problem. Now, I am a bit of a Richardson defender. I'm not ready to write his story or dig his grave yet. But you can't put him anywhere other than tier 4. And even Sandoz says that. I mean, a tier 4 quarterback could be an unproven player, not enough information for voters to classify. And there's definitely a couple of those. Like JJ McCarthy to me is no different than ranking a rookie at this point.
Yeah.
And Penix isn't that far off either. So that's where they belong. But I still have a little bit of faith in Richardson, but it's getting hard to defend him,
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, you have JJ McCarthy, who literally has not played a snap, ranked ahead of Anthony Richardson, which I think tells you, what you need to know about that situation. But we still have lots to dive into on Peacock and Williamson because injuries, unfortunately, continue to pile up across the NFL. But it seems like the Eagles might have dodged a bullet on Landon Dickerson. So we'll talk about what his injury was and whether he can get back on the field for Philadelphia, plus a lot more coming up on Peacock and Williamson. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel's Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. There's 24 hours. FanDuel's giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So I'm going to crown my champ in August. I'm the host of Locked On Ravens. I really feel like the Ravens have built their roster to win a Super Bowl this season. And overall on FanDuel, they are the favorite, or at least one of them. Right now, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Eagles are all plus 700 on FanDuel. And I honestly think those are good odds for me. I like Baltimore. I like what they bring to the table. And you have other teams in there like Kansas City at plus 850. I still like Baltimore, though, at plus 700 on FanDuel. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Back here on Peacock and Williamson, Kevin Oestreicher and Matt Williamson. We're still diving into NFL talk. Matt, you and I talked about the injury situation across the league yesterday, about a lot of guys going down in preseason. We mentioned the Rashawn Slater news. Well, another big offensive lineman, he went down at practice on Monday, and that is Landon Dickerson. He went down with an injury. It was a rough scene out at Philadelphia Eagles training camp, and apparently it's a meniscus injury for him. It's a minor procedure, though, on the meniscus in his right knee. Now, Adam Schefter reporting that he'll be considered week to week with the goal of returning for Thursday night. So that September 4th game, I guess, will be the initial timeline. A lot of guys, we know CJ Gardner-Johnson also kind of went through this where he was expected to be out for, I think, the season. And then new news came back on him where it was not as serious. So it's not always that, like, players don't always get that lucky, Matt, but the Eagles need Landon Dickerson this season. It would have been a brutal blow if he had to miss time.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think it's pretty clear he's one of the best guards in the league on definitely one of the best lines in the league. And with all respect to Saquon and Brown and Smith and Hurts, who we just talked about, and Goddard, the identity of the Eagles is their offensive line. It's going back to Kelsey and Lane Johnson and stalwarts there. And Dickerson is in that conversation as well. The initial reports sounded bad. I'm like, oh, he's got, it's going to be the whole year. Their second guard is okay, but it's not one of the strengths of the line, so the interior would have been compromised a great deal. Now, a lot of teams would still kill for that offensive line even without Dickerson, but week to week seems a little ambitious coming off of surgery tomorrow, but maybe he's out there by week 3 or 4. I mean, I'll take that.
Yeah. And I think that's what we've seen with a lot of these guys who have gone down with like medium level injuries that need the surgery, but are able to come back in like anywhere from 4 to 8 week timeline. Isaiah Likely in Baltimore, he broke his foot. The timeline for him is week 1, but a lot of people are thinking maybe 3 to 4. Khalil Shakir with a high ankle sprain, same thing. Is like he could come back in 4, could come back in 5. But
I think Kyle Shanahan said he expects Ayuk by about week 6,
Right.
Okay, that seems about reasonable.
And that's what I think teams should be doing is taking the cautious approach. Or you don't want a guy, and I always say this, Matt, where if you're out there and you're kind of gutting through it at 80%, 75%, it doesn't help you as the player and it doesn't help your team either. Like no one wins because you're not out there being able to be the best player that you can be. And I think there are a lot of examples of guys just rushing back from injuries and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be really good. Like, Ronnie Stanley was an example in Baltimore where he suffered that gruesome injury. He tried to come back week 1 of the next season. He just clearly wasn't right. And he missed the entire next year also. So it's like, don't rush yourself back. We know the Eagles, they have talent on that line. Like you mentioned it, teams would want that line even without Dickerson on it. They still have really quality playmakers on it, but I think for Dickerson, I'm not expecting him to be back for week 1, maybe week 2, because you're going to have the long break after Thursday night. Like I could maybe see that happening for them. But to me, I think that with the injuries across the league, it's just I'm just kind of bracing for something bad to happen every day, which is not what I want to be doing. But that's just the nature of the game.
The way it goes. Yeah. I mean, most news that happens once training camp opens is bad. I always warn teams, like everyone's super optimistic from draft until training camp. We're going to be healthier than last year. Everyone comes back from injuries, going to be better. All our draft picks are going to hit. No, they're not.
Nope. It never goes that way.
Mostly bad news from here on out, folks. Yeah.
When it comes to training camp news, you kind of get, the updates. You're out there, you're watching. Sometimes no news is good news. You could have the most lackadaisical day ever. Nobody wins the day, offense, defense. No one makes a big play. It's still a win for you if nobody gets injured. Like
you get through a preseason game and the coach comes to the podium and says, "We had no major injuries. Woohoo! Let's go." Right? Yeah.
That is the absolute best thing that you can have. Now, I want to round this out with you, Matt, with a Steelers conversation. We know that Cam Heyward is a valuable player to Pittsburgh. Cam Heyward, we don't know his status or his situation. He wants a contract. He spoke to the media, said he's looking to be valued. He knows what he brings to the team, what he's capable of. And he said that it's hard for him after the year he had to justify a player at the number he is playing at. And he is continuing to double, triple down on this stance. I know that some are potentially worried about holding out that could maybe even last into the regular season. Is that something you personally are concerned about? And do you feel like Pittsburgh should be able to pay Heyward what he wants?
So here's what's going on is he signed a contract 1 year ago at an advanced age, of course, coming off it was a down year by Cam Heyward standards. He was hurt pretty much all the 2023 season, battled through it, and was kind of just an average player, which by him is below the bar. And then, frankly, he was one of the best defensive linemen in the league last year. So he's vastly underpaid, and he really does have a case at this stage of his career. Hey, I don't have that many more paychecks in front of me. I don't think I'm asking much to be bumped up. I don't need to be the highest paid guy in the league, but I'm not the player I was when I signed the contract, all things considered, because I was down. He didn't practice today. He's sitting on the sidelines joking with Tomlin and the team, and I see him in the cafeteria, and he's happy as can be. Like, they'll probably rework his contract, give him $5 million bonus or something, and he'll retire a Steeler and be there week 1 and be great,
A lot of these situations usually result like these guys, they don't want to miss. They don't want to not play. Like they don't want to not play. And look, training
and the
camp
Steelers don't even want him to practice. They don't need anything from him right now. Just sit there and hang out. I mean, we don't need you to do anything. Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of these vets that sometimes just don't sign until training camp is almost over because they don't want to go through it. Like Jadeveon Clowney was notorious for doing that for years, where he just would wait until, and he did it with Baltimore. He waited until like August 20th or something to sign with the Ravens. So he didn't have to go through the offseason process. He's a vet. He knows what to expect. He's been there. Like Cam Heyward has been in Pittsburgh for forever. Literally forever. He knows what's going on. He knows the system. Like he doesn't.
They don't want him to
out
practice. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So to me, I think that yes, I'm with you, Matt. If I had to guess, I think everything will be fine and dandy and rosy and sunshine and rainbowy by the time week 1 rolls around. There's not
by week 6, it'll never come up again.
Not a doubt in my mind about it. But Matt, appreciate you again, man. This was great. Going over the tiers, there's always controversy in it.
Good stuff,
fan base is going to be 100% happy. Well, I guess in this case, unless you're the Chiefs or the Bengals of Burrow and Mahomes being tied there. But lists are always interesting in that regard. But that's all we have for you on Peacock and Williamson. For Matt Williamson, I am Kevin Ostreicher. We'll be back here soon talking more football. So be sure to stay tuned with the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form on the way out. And we'll see you right back here soon on Peacock and Williamson.